Hello. Okay, so for this month, we are diving into Venus on a whole new level, mostly because I want you to really do some Venus work while Venus is in retrograde, which she is now. All of you did my Venus retrograde workshop when Venus was retrograde in Leo. And obviously, we've covered Venus in a few different contexts. In the very first part of our studies together, we did a month where we focused on Venus. I'm going to recap all of this quickly for you in this video before I talk about the new content. We also then covered the planets and Venus in that context in our last year's work together. We've done Venus through retrograding in that other workshop that we did, but also just learning about retrogrades. So here we're just going to do a quick recap. So I'm going to share my screen to remind you of the things we did. Excuse me, my throat is needing a little clearing. Okay, so when we did our Okay, seems to be up now. Our one Venus story, we had these questions. So you might, if you did print these out and fill them out for yourself, you're going to go back to my Venus story. That was from the very first time that we did Venus work together. And you looked at your Venus sign. So you're going to want to recap that. The Venus rules what sign? And already the clues were beneath here because planets in Taurus, Venus rules Taurus. Planets in Libra, Venus rules Libra. So you were starting to make a connection between, first of all, understanding Venus more, and secondly, going, well, do I have planets or points in Venus ruled signs? So I only said planets, but for example, if you have the North Node in Taurus, then that's a point, not a planet, as you would know that now. But here I was keeping it more simple. So then again, saying, okay, well, Taurus rules, and also what house is Taurus in my chart, because that is a Venus ruled house. So if in your chart Taurus is your rising sign, then you're going to say, well, Taurus rules the first house of my chart. That's pretty personal because it rules me, okay? Or it rules the seventh house in my chart. Well, that Taurus is in kind of ruling my relationships, and who rules Taurus? Venus does, okay? So you can see how we can layer it in. And then also my Venus likes and my Venus struggles with. So again, go back to the way that you answered those questions if you want to kind of just drop back into Venus and understand what she wanted you to know. And then with that month, what we did was you remember at the end, I put all the planets together, but each month I was just sending out that one sort of puzzle piece. So Venus keywords are I love, I attract, what I want versus what I need, which is the moon, create, beauty, comfort, lymphatic, graceful. She rules Taurus and Libra, and the differences there would be that Taurus is more about comfort, sensory world, stubborn, and food. Libra is more about balance, aesthetic, accommodating, and clothes. And then debilitated in Aries and Scorpio. So Aries and Scorpio, take a moment here to think what planet rules Aries and Scorpio. Pause this video if you want to give yourself a little test and you need a little more time. But Aries and Scorpio are both Mars-ruled planets. So now we go, okay, Mars is kind of the counterpart, that counterpart masculine energy to Venus's feminine energy. And if we look at the sign of Libra, it is opposite Aries. And that means Mars and Venus are opposite each other in those two archetypes, Libra being Venus ruled and Aries being Mars ruled. So Venus loves to be in her own place of Libra, struggles more, debilitated in Aries. Same thing for Taurus. Taurus is Venus's place, opposite Taurus is Scorpio's place, that's Mars's place. So Venus loves to be in her own Taurus, but not so much in Mars's Scorpio. And then Venus loves being in Pisces. Pisces is where she gets to be very like organic and graceful and fluid and all those creative and lovely. But she doesn't like the details of Virgo. And I've said this a million times before, and no doubt you're starting to get sick of me repeating myself, but I do feel that's how we learn. I've said that before too. Virgo is if you have a Virgo Venus, you're probably a good accountant or bookkeeper or secretary or anybody that needs to keep ordered. So it's not necessarily bad. I mean, if you were a school secretary, I often think this when I'm contacting the school secretary at school, like, oh my God, what a job. I'm so glad it's not mine. And this woman is amazing and she is so organized. I wouldn't be surprised to find that she might have a Virgo Venus, okay? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is, if you're living with that, maybe it's hard for you to just let go and trust and surrender to creativity and grace because you're so busy with your checklist. Okay, so this is just our little reminder. Okay, I want to stop this share and move into a different share to remind you of some of our other things. One moment. Here we go. Okay, so then when we did it in our other context, when we did it the following time with the planets, here we go. I just want to go back a few slides here. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, so then we did it in that presentation format that was pre-recorded, and I'm just going to go through just the slides that pertain to Venus, just to bring you back in Venus energy. So Venus is known in ancient astrology as the lesser benefic. We know about this, but just a reminder, Venus shows us what we value, connecting to self-worth and net worth. She informs how we love and how we long to be loved. She is the muse-like attractor planet, ruling over the sacred feminine aspect of self, not in a gender sense. She is the counterpart to Mars. Venus can only be 48 degrees away from the sun because she's an internal planet inside the orbit of Earth, between Earth and the sun. Okay, personifying Venus. You might remember these little ways that I just wanted to bring in this, making her a personality so you can feel into her. So I love. I am the goddess of love. I love, to be loved. And when things aren't going my way, occasionally I like to mess with love. That is a Venus retrograde thing, okay? I am happiest magnetically attracting that which I want. I know wants are not always needs, but I want what I want. I happen to be very business-minded. Does this surprise you? I am very aware of what is beautiful and attractive aesthetically and sensorially. I can attract wealth on all levels if I want to. Okay, so that is Venus. And then just to say here again, the inner planets are Mercury and Venus because they are between the Earth and the Sun, which I just said. This means that there are times when these planets are more bound than the outer planets to the Sun from the perspective of Earth in astrology and cannot get further than a certain number of degrees. I just want to point out, because we did do a retrograde class, I think it was like 2 months ago now. It was when we did that double up when I sent you 2 classes because we were going over the Christmas season. So that retrograde class was on retrogrades in general. I did it then because Mars was retrograding. And now we are having Venus and Mercury retrograde, the 2 inner planets who are much more stuck to how far they can get from the sun. Okay, so that I wanted to share with you. And then I wanted to remind you, let me just see if I've got the right, yes. I wanted to remind you of the Venus workshop that we did together that was not part of our story studies, but Marty did it with me online. And I think we had a personal meeting with the others in my Grahamstown cottage. And we all had such profound experiences of remembering things that had gone on in this Venus retrograde. So I think I'm going to have to make a new page. This thing took me bloody ages to make, I have to say. But I see I only went as far as the retrograde we were on, which was July 23rd to September 4th, 2023. That was when we would have, in that window was when we had that Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde workshop. And that was the last Venus retrograde until this point. So the previous one to the one, we're now in the Aries retrograde. And so the previous one to that would have been 8 years ago from now. And if you scroll down on your list, hopefully you still have these lists because you would have put stuff into them. And I hope you didn't lose them. But if you did, you can let me know. I'll send you another and you can reprint it. But yeah, so you're going to go back to March 4th, April 15th, 2017. And that's going to link you to this Venus retrograde cycle. Okay, I'm going to speak more into all of this in the next video. I just wanted to give you a little recap so that I can kind of like orient you in where we have been with Venus, what we have covered, so that you can just go, oh, yes, that makes sense. Oh, yes, I remember that. So the other thing that I'm kind of curious about, because I haven't really traveled enough, but like the last time we did that Venus retrograde workshop was the first time I ran that workshop. And although I've been watching the Venus cycle for myself for quite some time, it hasn't been a full 8 years. So, what I'm interested to notice is if when we did that last time and it was a Leo retrograde, if you found it easier to remember the Leo retrograde phases and some of the others, of course, but if the Leo ones were maybe, were maybe brightest for you, and now we're in an Aries one, I'll be curious to know, does the Aries one stand out to you? And maybe last time you were like, I just can't remember those 3 Aries retrogrades that were there. I just couldn't come up with something, or one of them specifically. And now all of a sudden you do. So it will be interesting to see. I'm going to drop into my own form that I made of this, and also just take some time, because when Venus is retrograde in the sky, we have more facility to go to those places that are Venus retrograde. Okay. That's why it was so powerful when we did it last time. If we had have done a Venus retrograde workshop, like when the Venus is not retrograde, we aren't riding the waves and the currents of the energy in the sky as they are now. And that's why a reminder that not everything is always activated in your chart at any one time. Right now we're in eclipse season. That's why we looked at eclipses last time. So now you ride the eclipse current and you go, whoa, so what does eclipse energy mean for me? And what happened the last time eclipses were in this pair of signs? And so you get to ride that wave. But then if you're going to try and work on the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle now, it won't be as strong for you, but you might still access it because it's an eclipse cycle. So you can look back to other eclipses, but it might not be as like tangible for you and visceral for you as if you look back into the Aries Libra, because we're between double signs here. So we're finishing Aries Libra and we're stepping into Pisces Virgo. And so both of those those 2 axes or those 4 archetypes are all active. So that might be louder than the previous eclipse cycle, which was Taurus and Scorpio. Okay, so we've gotten a little bit more oriented with, sorry, wait, let me just see, was there something on this folder I wanted to, oh, no, that was just, I was just trying to get everything opened so I could show you what I want to show you for the recap. And the next video is going to be more a discussion of where we want to go with this month. And yeah, how you feel like deepening into your Venus process by understanding the retrograde. So thank you for watching this one. Let me stop this share and I will be back shortly.